This is our webinar on how to get started with test automation in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. I'm Jacob Davis, and I'll be your moderator for this webinar. As you all probably know, ERP test automation is widely recognized as a necessity nowadays due to things like Microsoft's OneVersion continuous update cycle. In reality, there's just way too much to test and way too frequently that you need to test it to be able to do it manually. So the question's no longer really, should we automate testing or not? It's more of a question, how do we get started? How do we automate testing? What should we automate, etc. And so today, I thought it would be nice if we can have the star of our show, Bartosz Szpie, join us and share his knowledge and experience on just that topic. A little bit about Bart. He is a leading mind in the world when it comes to test automation for D365. Honestly, he has too many projects to count under his belt that he can help use to give some guidance. And he also guides our team here at X Plus in the area of test automation. And so today I wanted to have him join us and talk and share his experiences. The agenda for today, we will talk about what you need to know about test automation. This will be Bart kind of sharing his experience on what you really need to know to get started whenever you're doing test automation. That'll include things like the testing team and, of course, testing tool must-haves, things you need to be able to do with the tool that you're using to do the test automation. After that, he'll dive into the tool that we use here at X Plus for our implementations, our service contracts. Our clients use this tool as well. It's called Executive Automats, and so he'll show how we're using that. And also talked in about not just test automation, but some of the byproducts that come along with automation that are quite useful just in an overall project. Once we've talked about that, he'll jump into some real life customer examples. I think he's got a really good one today. Actually, Bart and I joined a project together and we're talking about this. This will be a really nice customer example. And then after that, we'll have a bit of a Q&A session. I've got my team here with me as well as Bart, who can answer questions. So the chat is on, drop your questions in there. We'll answer them as we go along. But also we'll have some time at the end to answer questions. Of course, as I mentioned, we've got my team here with me, so we'll be able to respond to those questions, and if needed, we can follow up afterwards and answer any further questions that you have. So without further ado, I'm really excited to have Bart here today, so I will turn it over to you, Bart, and let you take it away, man. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for the introduction. Always flattered by Jake's words. Yeah, today gladly we're going to share with you the experience from the days before COVID we've spent on the test automation projects, not only test automation, but also the byproducts. And after COVID right now, day and nights, because we are gladly collaborate with multiple companies, partners across the globe, from Japan, Australia, up to US. And let's jump in straight into the test automation need to knows. We would like to give you some ideas, some points that you can think of concerning test automation. Definitely when you are starting the implementation project, or when you are before go live and you are considering the OneVersion maintenance to be sort of prepared for every version from Microsoft which is coming. These elements might be good to understand, to just remember. So if you think about the test automation world and the test automation in Dynamics Finance and Operations, there are plenty of topics, and this can simply overwhelm you. We would like to outline a few important aspects. Very often when you start a project, we talk about team setup. Very simple stuff, but it is good to have. For that, we very often use the RACI matrix to outline who will be responsible for business users. So who will gather the business users, who will make them available for that exercise of identifying the business processes. It is good to have DevOps, DevOps for maintenance of the environment, to have them always up and running, to deactivate when we don't test, so we are saving on Azure costs, to simply move the data. So data migration, just a sneak peek, but data migration is a heavy topic which you need to do. So the DevOps in here is essential. Of course, this might be DevOps, this might be technical architect, depending who takes care of the environments in your organization. Moving along, you can identify a position of test manager and QA analyst. The QA analyst is simply a person who records the test cases, identifies them based on the business process documentation, which is delivered from the business users, and then they simply record and then they set the status of a particular test case as ready for review. So they communicate with a test manager. So the test manager then tells, all right, that's good. We can actually tell that the test manager is a person who organized the entire process, the cycle of testing, but also the test manager might be a super user of the automation. So we believe actually that the automation works only when your recorded process that you do, your test case, is possible for replaying, for reusable. Sort of the reusability aspect gives you the possibility to execute your test case not once, but tens or even hundreds of times. So you record once and you use that time multiple times throughout the cycle of the life cycle of finance operations. Continuing, the QA analyst or test manager can be that super user who sets those all configuration, who sets those all Excel files, number sequences, so those test cases are actually reusable. And of course, moving along, when you've got your team, when we know who is responsible for what, when we've got this environment set, we need to think about what to test. Test scope definition. We've got two aspects in here. The test scope definition is what we're going to test, which areas. So we can build some aggregation level. It might be aggregation level based on modules like accounts payable test cases, or test suite for accounts payable, a test suite for accounts receivable, and sales and marketing, and so on and so on. This might be procurement to pay. It might be sales to cash, warehouse to release, or hire to retire. These type of conventions can be set. So your test cases, when you create them, you save them underneath specific test suite. So it helps you build very efficient and precise regression or smoke testing. You modify posting profile from accounts payable, then you do smoke test around that module and some other possible modules which are interconnected. So that's good to build at the aggregation level, which reflects your organization, and then you know that you are testing enough. And actually, test manager in here is the person who connects with the business users. So the test manager is trying to identify the possible scope of the particular test suite execution, and he builds that. He builds the scope. He sets the plan for testing. So that's good to have the proper test cases scope definition. And test case definition, that is something as well important, because test case definition sets you all principles that your principles and perks of your test case. You need to identify that test case have the outcome, so expected results, the data which is needed. So if data is preloaded, or you have to do the data, so create data before the execution. You need to know something regarding the integration part. If the test case has some integration perspective, or it is multi-entity, it is good to define that in the test case. It is also good to define a responsible area, so business users who is behind the process. So you have the possibility to reach out to the person who is responsible for the area for additional knowledge regarding the process. And there is one very nice element here, golden template, which sort of connects very heavily with test case. The golden template is a a process, a test case, which is covering a process, which is shared throughout the organization. So there are situations where the whole company, which gathers tens or hundreds of entities, they have one business in common and they've got multiple processes in common. So we can say these are golden processes. And if we are thinking about those golden processes, most likely they have the same input. They execute the same way. They've got, of course, some local differences. So you need to identify some specific values for a specific local regulator. But from the overall view, they've got the same process, so you can actually record one test case and reuse it by multiple entities. The only thing which changes is just the data, the item IDs, the VAT, the VAT values, some tax definitions, so on, so on. Aside of the gold template, there is a local test suite. So we can implement that approach that you've got golden template, so golden processes, shared ones, and those which are local, so specific for the market, and they are maintained by the local group. So a specific entity is responsible for giving an input what's changed in that area. So local are mostly orientated for speciality of the business or specific things about the finances in that area. So we've got the team, we've got the test scope, we've got the following element, which will be the data migration strategy. That's important because to execute the test case, you need to have data available. You can create the data, so you can have preset of test cases, which will create customers, item IDs, so on. And you run that small test suite, which will create preset of the data so the transactions can happen. Secondly, there's a different approach. If you're going to build data entity, so simply if you're going to do once a configuration for workflows, worker user relation, position worker relation, and the users, if you're going to do that, you can actually extract this as a data entity, and then before running your test suite, your regression, you can import that back. So you take data from prod, you sort of deploy it on UAT, and then you are using this for testing. And of course, right after that, you can deploy after taking data from prod, you can deploy the changes, the specific configuration by data entity on that UAT. And that is the second approach that is very effective, because normally we see that customers are having a problem with the data migration, how to deal with that, how to build that process so it will be effective. And when we've got this defined, we can think about the test management tool. And again, we're going to recommend the Azure DevOps. We've seen multiple projects. There are some solutions if you are mad at Azure DevOps and you don't like the way how it is organized, you can use TestRail. And we've seen also Jira very often used for that. But normally Azure DevOps is the test management tool we always recommend. The tool we use for the project delivery is Executive Automats, and it is also very seamlessly integrated with Azure DevOps. And now I would like to include Jake or ask to the scene. So, buddy, you can tell us a few words regarding the stress test automation today. Starting the test automation today. You are muted, buddy.
Jake, you need to unmute first.
Thank you. I'm glad I had video on so you guys could see me talking. Yeah, so you just mentioned actually the Executive Automats tool. Wanted to point out that we have a free trial for that available. And for attendees, we've actually got a bit of a special offer for you. You can get a free proof of concept. This is where we talk with you, do a bit of consultation and figure out exactly what you're trying to test and come in and show you how you can actually test that. Of course, using our tool Executive Automats. This includes 2 weeks of regression testing, performance testing, and process documentation, which Bart will touch on all of these in just a minute. Of course, you also have our D365 experts providing full-time support during the trial. And we start with a 1-hour training to get you up and running, and then can move into the POC and really discuss what you're trying to do, and make sure that you're comfortable with the level of testing that you're able to do with regards to that topic. So as you can see, this offer is valid until the 16th of September, so that's next Thursday. And in order to sign up for it, you can just go to executiveautomats.com /EA-free-trial. So you can see that there. It's also in the chat now, so you can catch it
just
in the
posted a
chat.
link.
Yep, perfect. So, all right, Bart, thanks for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing with Executive Automats today.
So much. Yeah, let's jump into the Executive Automats. I'm going to switch the screens to the presentation here, to the application of Executive Automats. So as you can see right now, I'm just refreshing the site. And we are in Executive Automats. There are a few basic things to remember. The application, the Executive Automats, is hosted outside of Dynamics. So you are actually not installing anything on your Dynamics. There is purely setting on a site as a separate environment. We host ourselves on Linux to make sure that it is easy to deploy, it is secure for your organization. It might be hosted on cloud or on-prem. It might be an SAS service, software as a service. It might be a lifetime license. To get inside, even to this environment, you need to have your own login and password. So the user authentication is here. In the next coming release, we're going to have something which one of our customers wanted heavily, which is Azure Active Directory single sign-on. So you'll be able to use your Dynamics accounts to get inside. On the top, we've got a few major functionalities, which is project, script, and scheduler. And I'm going to walk you through them right now. What is script? Script is simply a business process, a test case that you define on your environment. And you may see here we've got environment, update 42. We've got some CPOSs, update 43 and 44. You can actually consider Executive Automats as one centralized platform for your test automation. You can have defined here multiple environments, all updates that you are testing, or all UAT, SIT, pre-release, dev, sandboxes. So you record your test cases on one environment, for example, update 42, and then you just change on the header of the script the endpoint. It would not test anymore the update 42, but 44 or 43. So that is a parameter that you can change. The test case, we can say, is a sort of a template of the process. It has some values, it has some logical execution, some steps, but the endpoint, the user which is used for testing, is up to you. You can change that. It is super flexible. And regarding the users, we have the definition of virtual users in our application. Virtual user is an Azure Active Directory account which can be used, which has some privileges, some security access into the tested environment. You can define in Executive Automats multiple accounts, which open doors for you for security testing, which open doors for you for workflow testing. And the workflow is actually very critical, because you can start the process as one person, then sign in as an approver, and then continue the transaction. So this is script in short words. Projects, these are the aggregation we were mentioning before. The aggregation is critical for the effectiveness of your test plans. And here we've got one of the two approaches you can pick, which will be module-based aggregation or workstream based aggregation. Of course, you can have this, and if you are utilizing CPOS, you can test some specifics for CPOS, which can be here, as well as CE. It is nice to mention that the CPOS that we handle, we've got some extensions like hardware station testing and a little bit more specifics just for retail, as we are heavily collaborating with one of the biggest brands in the world regarding the retail. So let's jump in here to the scripts for just a moment, and let's record a simple test case to show you the reusability aspect, to show you the easiness of the process recording. So I'm going to pick a project. So right now I'm making a decision which project it will be used. So I need to know what process I'm going to record. And one of the best principles is to call your process by its code, but its code name. Create sales. If you're going to sort of continue the journey with creation of your test case and to always define your code name, it will help you with communication in the team. We've seen multiple problems around that users are creating their processes, their test cases, not concerning some variants like intercompany transaction or domestic transaction. It is good to identify the exact process, the exact variant of your particular process, so it will be easy to communicate what to test. When you create your test case, it is empty. It is using the system and the virtual user from the current selection, and I can click start and record. So system will reload the page. On the left-hand side, there is a workspace for dynamics. On the right-hand side, there's a workspace of automation. We're going to see all steps we're going to perform on the system side. They're going to be listed, and I will be able to make some modifications to it. And let's click record on the right-hand side, and you're going to see that walking through the dynamics will give me multiple actions identified. And let's continue the way. I'm going to click new to define new SO. I'm going to select customer, vendor as a customer, item ID, site warehouse, and some other elements that we can make a credit limit check, and we'll be able to continue the process. So right now I'm just navigating through the system, simple as it is, as the business user, which is daily doing their tasks. And every selection of the process I do here, like account number, is changeable. If I'm going to select item A001, I can always click plus here and change this to something else. So if I would like to do transactions for something else later on, I don't need to recreate this process. I can just modify what is on the right-hand side. System is loading. It might be overwhelmed by today's session a bit. I can click edit, and I can do modifications. I can use the current account that we use, US002. I can change it to anything else. The constant here means that when you play back the process, it will always use this specific ID for every execution. If you're gonna change to 03, it will be always 03. If you will use Picker, Picker is, we call it user-friendly coding, user interface-friendly coding, which simply helps you utilize elements like variables, which helps you utilize elements like number sequences. So this is the list. We've got variables which are existing in this context. The variable helps you transfer data from one position to another one. So in case that you create a customer and you would like to use it for this transaction, you can simply do that. Data source. Data source is actually an Excel file. So if you've got an Excel file which contains customers, item ID, site warehouse, you can build that in the Excel, drop it, and then select data in here. I'm going to try to do example with you around the Excel file. Number sequence, simple functionality from the standard of the system, but this functionality is embedded in our settings area. You define multiple number sequences, and every iteration of your test case, which is utilizing number sequence, increments the value. So you always have something unique. You can create 1,000 customers with unique name, unique surname, unique mail. So that's essential. Invoice IDs, product receipt IDs, multiple places in the system which are requiring uniqueness of the data. And there is something good to mention, global. And global opens doors for the possibility to utilize some physical constants, some fixed values which are practically not changed so much, like a PIN, like logins for warehouse devices, like license plates which are not changed so much, or serial numbers for transactions. These elements can be set as a global constant, and then anything you do, you are, I mean, any process would utilize it. It has it sort of fixed, but if you change that value on the global level, all scripts are inheriting the change. So it is good to have this because this simplifies the maintenance process of your scripts. And there's global variable. So normal concept where few scripts can update existing variable. So you are always using the up-to-date element for a process. So this is regarding the picker. We've got also expression and advanced code. And you might know that this application, we don't want to limit anybody. If somebody is a technical a lot, or JavaScript professional, they can simply use their knowledge to write here an extension. So we want to open doors for developers. So if they would like to do a REST API connection, if they would like to take some data from something, from some EDI, you can invoke here your service, get value, use it in a script. You can make some translations, transformations of the data. You can do upper cases, lower cases, substrings. All operations which are possible can be done here, possible in JavaScript, and they are just invoked in this moment. So this helps you build very effective test scripts. Of course, it is good to mention that aside of the production or building the product day by day based on what customers are telling us, we call this a community-driven roadmap. We are delivering services for end customers, and within the providing the services and building the product, we are delivering also a lot of support. We are helping the customers with code test cases, so we write the code for them. We give them ideas how to invoke that, so they are able to utilize 100% of the application, and even more because they are utilizing something which is dedicated, created for them. And advanced fields, this is again something more technical, but you are able to build some more hooks how to get into the button on the screen. So you are able to find out how to finalize, how to find the element that we are approaching in the process. Okay, maybe enough talking about the site elements. I've got in here 2 steps which I actually don't need, so I can clean up my recording. So that's something you can always do. I'm going to switch to the header, and I'm going to use one function which is called inspection. And our testing is focused on a few things. You are testing the stability, so the happy path, and you are able to check the results, because the process may work, but the question is if the transaction is set enough, if we've got the exact tax amount we are expecting, if the inventory transactions are posted, so on. So by inspection button, right now system is loading header, I see, quite intensively. Let's give him a few more seconds. But if you are utilizing the inspection, it gives you the possibility to save any visible value as a variable. So I can save, finally, I can take the status and save it as a variable and then make a comparison. So let's say the status for me is important because this is one of the business criteria, one of the expected result of the test case. I can click here and I can save the current value of the particular variable as a status, SO. And I can make a quick condition. So system checks next time when it's going to be executed, if the expected result is open order, if yes, continue, success, otherwise, warning, status is wrong. Create. So there will be an inspection, the condition element, which does this verification. Okay, on the upper right corner, you see that aside of those 4 elements, there's a comment. And comment is also very important because if I'm going to be very precise, I'm going to place the comments what to do, what I'm doing right now. So I'm giving the business context of my business process. If I'm going to save my entire process and run this not in foreground but in background, I can create the documentation, so it will be a step-by-step instruction how to recreate this business process. Right now, we can say we are ending the transaction. So I'm going to stop right now the recording. I can switch the player and just check the consistency. If everything that we selected is good, and I'm able to play back the process. In the new version, which you might not know yet, we are making this seamless. We are unifying this interface to make as much efficiency to help you build very easy test case, to help you build test cases in a very easy way that it's effective, that's make the high reusability. So on the right-hand side, you've got some info about the status of the execution. You don't need to actually change the site. You've got everything in your in the place. If we're gonna find out right now any problem, any bug, I can simply switch back to the recorder and continue the recording by adding some elements. I can pause my recording, then the playback, sorry, and insert in the middle of the process few steps. So it will be extended because I might miss something, or I might want to record it a little bit differently because the business just changed. But after all, if I'm happy with the result, and right now we are executing in foreground, it means that I'm watching the execution. I can see step by step how it goes. And in case that I don't want to watch it, this is normally how our customers are utilizing this. They are just executing this in background. The background execution creates on the system side one browser which has tab which is executing the process. So we are recreating this transaction in the exact way as we are doing right now, but on the server side. And within the execution, I can create the documentation. I can multiply the transactions. I can run not one session, but run parallel sessions. So I can simulate quite a load tests on the environment. So we've got a successes. Everything looks good. I can switch back to recorder to do some changes, or if I want, I can simply close down this page of recorder, and I can do here also modifications. So this is the old screen. This is the old screen where we used to do changes. Right now we are just doing this for further copying and pasting elements, because the script can be treated as a pixel of the big picture of your image. So you have multiple pixels, multiple scripts. You can embed them here. I don't need to use this script as it is. I can actually create embedded script. So I can add into my script execution here an invoking of execution of another script. So this will be executing partially this script, and then system executes another process which is created in the system. I can reorder all our elements, so you can simply change them very easily. And yeah, this embedding scripts possibility gives you the possibility to create some dependencies, some scenarios. That's going to be very, very long. And there are no limits in steps. There are no limits or number of embedded scripts. So we've seen something like gold process. Don't be confused with golden template. Gold process is the longest process which can be defined in the organization, which goes through all critical processes. We've seen golden processes which are going through production creation based on the customer quote conversion to sales. So we've got a quote to sales production, master planning, inventory transaction, then finally invoicing, collection letters, and deleting the item from the offer. This path actually takes on our customer side about 2 months in real world. To recreate that testing, it takes about few days. The test automation, thanks to that all prerequisites are there, takes about 25 minutes. It might be super long, it might be super effective, but these golden processes can be executed practically daily to make sure that the environment works in a perfect way. I was talking about the Excel file, and I've actually prepared a second ago quick Excel file for you to show you how does it look like. Data webinar. Let's open up a quick Excel file to show you the quick data set. So this is how this can look like. You can have one spreadsheet with customer IDs, product, sites, warehouse, entity. As simple as it might be, you can just drop this file and use it for test cases. Multi-entity, different approach. We are discussing the golden process, golden template. So in this case, golden template is important because one process which is shared, different entity, different customers, different entity, it might be different product. So this simple data definition can give you the possibility to execute one test case against all of those 4 entities without adjustment. So that's critical because this creates reusability of your test cases. If I have my Excel file, what I can do right now, I can simply drop the file here and system loads the data into my test case on the steps. I can go to the account number, edit picker. So right now I use Excel file, sales, and this is the customers, customer data set. Then I can use the item IDs. So the definition of linking is super easy, and you are able to change that later on very easily as well. The Excel file has 4 rows. To make the iterations, I just need to add the system to logic. So if I'm going to do here a conditional step, I can tell the system loop the Excel, and I can define this at the end. So after step number 17, we would like to do the data source. If the data source has another row, and we would like to take data from the sales spreadsheet, if there will be more rows, then take the next row from this source and jump to selection of the main menu, iterate on sales, and then if there will be no other row available, simply continue. So this very specific logic can give me 4 iterations. And right now, this step, which is not needed anymore, I can remove or make it disable. We've got the 2 possibilities. It might be disable or make it optional. As you know, there are dialog boxes which are sort of available sometimes. If you're going to fail on if the dialog box will not appear, then typically the test automation breaks down because they expect dialog box to happen. We've got the optionality of the action. So if it happens, that's good. If not, system continues. Okay, let's click start, playback, this time in background, and create for us documentation. Let it run, and let's jump further. Scheduler. What is scheduler? This is simply planning. I can build here smoke test for Friday, and I can use the basic mode or Gantt execution. Let's start with Gantt. Of course, the results that we've got here can be saved in DevOps. That's not a problem. Then you're going to have a workspace which identifies everything, which the cockpit, which identifies the results of your current smoke test. If I'm going to go to the definition of our smoke test, I can go to Gantt, click edit, and add the tasks. This means that right now I can finally utilize what we were doing in the definition of our test cases. I can simply select multiple of them, and if I'm going to do that, I'm able later on to build the graphic execution of our test cases. If I'm going to click edit, I can move them left, I can move them right, so they're going to be executed on a specific part of the day or on the timeline. And it is very important because I can make a dependencies around these elements. So I can tell the system to execute one element only when this element will end, then finally the second element will start. I can group tasks and I can make some parallel execution. Some of those tasks can be executed in parallel on 10, 20, 30 or more sessions in the same moment. And sequentially, this means that I can run them one by one. And continuing, I'm going to go back a bit to the general page where we've got the basic execution. And here also I can build the execution on Friday, 8 p.m. And I will be able to be notified by email and results in DevOps as well. So that's pretty straightforward. And here, if you're going to build, that's just a list, but this list doesn't have any dependencies. So that's typical basic execution. So all about the aggregation is very important, because if you're going to have your aggregation in perfect shape. I know that modified a bit of a few elements for posting profile. I can take the areas which I would like to test. I can take all test cases, move them up. 47 test cases will be executed. Of course, I can reorder them to place them in a perfect order, and save and activate to wait for Friday for the test cases to be executed. Monday morning, review the results and inject actions which are important to verify some bugs. So this is about the documentation, the scheduler, and let's jump into the documentation. Documentation is actually a separate module in the system, which gives you the possibility to invite the business users. So the executive automates can become a web-based knowledge platform. And that element is very useful because if you're going to build your test cases coverage, so you know that your all test cases are executed, or you are mapping your entire application with all of your test cases, and then all test cases can be converted into the documentation. You know that you've got 100% of documentation which is up to date because they were possible for execute. I can download latest documentation regarding some sales creation. They've got some specific status. The status is published, so I can jump in here to see exactly how they look like. This means that you can create the documentation, and only when somebody will approve it, it will be published, so the business users will see that. So there is the side logic which handles this, but it gives you a nice idea how to build your knowledge base with existing test cases. So this is one of the byproducts, and actually we're going to jump into the byproducts in just a moment. But this is actually documentation wizard. This is the knowledge base that you can create. After the execution, all executions are based in the history. If you're going to have some error messages on the execution, you're going to find out that something is working wrong. You can go here, find out, all right, there is a product C is on hold. This is our execution in background we were doing. As you remember, I just created an Excel file with multiple rows, but for some reason, the C001, which I've used, is on hold. So I can make a work item on the DevOps side so somebody can check configuration because the business expected that it will work. So I can simply navigate to the DevOps, and here I can assign developer so they can work on the issue, or I can find consultants so they can review why the system failed on that item. Simple as it is. Save and let them work. All right. Let's close this down, and let's see on the right-hand side, we've got screenshots. So every step which succeeded has the screenshot as well. We've got duration to see and understand the context of the time needed for the execution. This and much more can be actually learned about our application. It takes a few hours to go through all documentation and all features. This is just the result of very tight, very close collaboration with our partners and customers. And yeah, gladly we are just releasing version by version to help you out build quality test cases to minimize the risk of failures which are going to the production environment. Let me just show you a little bit more of what else you can do. We just discussed the process documentation. So every test case can be converted into the documentation. So you can have a web-based knowledge platform based on your test cases. And there is something interesting called security role setup, which means that every process that we are recording here, like sales creation, purchase creation, fixed asset creation, practically anything, can be converted into the quick duty, privilege, or role, up to you. This means that I can actually go to my environment, and we've just deployed there our extension called SSW, Security Setup Wizard, which is extracting from scripts all entry points which were used in introduction. Entry points, code permissions, and tables, to be straight. I can just jump into the system administration, security, roles, process, maintain, and right now, you will see the major cockpit, which has a lot of functionalities that are meeting the requirements. The first thing you select is the area. This will be a sales area where we're going to extract the security. This is basically an approach which is called position-based roles. We want to create a role which represents a sales representative, which represents a real position in the organization. So one person has one role with possible extension as a supervisor. And this simplification and this approach simplifies the entire security process creation. We want to extract the entry points from the process and not select something which standards offers, because the standard gives you too much. The standard will actually place you in most of the times as an operational level license, and we want to give it the possibility to become a team member or activity license. So let's say in sales area, we've got a new position. This will be domestic sales manager. And I'm going to define this new line, domestic sales. Let's click OK. We're going to have new line here on the left-hand side. And for that line, we're going to import an executive automate script, which means that we're going to have an extraction of our test case that we just created. And we would like to load the table permissions and form controls. Let's confirm system connects by API. Actually, this one already exists, so system prevents about duplicates. I can take another process. We want to make sure that the processes that you are creating, they will not create duplicates in the duties area. So it is always a possibility to take something which exists. So let's say take some customer, or for text invoice might be sufficient. Okay, and this system converts your business process into the security objects. And I see that system doesn't like it today. The issue. That's interesting. System extracts the entry point from the process and then creates a specific privilege or duty dedicated for the business process. So we want to keep it very clean. And let me just reload. I think that's just a partial glitch that we saw. Sales area. Okay. So as mentioned, executive automates recording or task recording. So even if you don't have the executive automates, you can always load data from existing task recordings that you have, and then system gives you the possibility to convert your business process into the list of entry points. So take a look. I've just extracted entry points. They are very simple. We've got just 3. So I can build from that an entry point. I can build from that the new privilege, and that new privilege can be applied to the existing role, or I can build new duty or new role, which can be visible in the system. So webinar privilege. And let me show you that quickly in the system configuration. So privilege is created. If I need, I can jump in here quickly to show the privilege which was just created. It has precise elements with precise update access. If you just read the data, it will be read. If it will be update, it will be update only, and so on and so on. So that is pretty straightforward. Let me just give you the results. And giving you a sneak peek of how deeply we went, we actually find out few bugs in the standard of Microsoft, which are right now fixed by Microsoft because we went very low on the level of security creation. And till now, actually, nobody from the customers were using so heavily the code permissions and the form controls. And we want to enable you to build your processes very precisely. So as you see, new privilege created. So I can apply to the role and run my tests on the user. To move forward on another byproduct, I would like to jump into the customer case study and solution that we've got. And this is regarding the performance testing. And as you know, lately, I've just discussed with you that I'm able to execute my process in parallel, in background, which gives us to the point where we are able to simulate load or make a stress test on the environment. This means that I can generate one day after go live on the environment. In simple words, we are identifying with a customer what kind of processes they do daily. We record them based on their business documentation. And then we are executing a number of sessions in parallel, particularly trying to reflect how system will work as a day one after go live. As you know, the scalability of Dynamics is very often measured by the blueprint, and the hardware setup might be not sufficient, might be not enough. This execution, this real life example is the tier 5 environment with 12 iOSs, 6 iOSs for logic and 6 batch iOSs, which were available for the transactions. And we were executing about 650 transactions in parallel, which as a result, actually, as you see here, killed 4 of 6 business iOSs, the business logic, and actually the transactions failed. They were not delivered. They were not completed. The CPU utilization went skyrocketing as well, so it was quite impossible to work on most of the iOSs. And the result, the load balancer was not set properly, and the hardware setup which was proposed were actually tweaked to make sure that the next time the customer will not face the same issues. And this was actually our recommendation, to tweak the hardware before something like this can happen in the production.
Bart, can you zoom up a little bit?
Sure thing. Let me zoom up this.
Great.
This is the actual this zoomed in a bit, the graphs of the execution. We've done the same thing on the AX2012 in multiple iterations. It was actually quite easy out there as well. We've done the test on enterprise portals as well. So that's something which can be a project based. So the customers are coming to us and they say, we've got a doubt that the environment will work not efficient as we plan. Let's do a test. So we create a stress test and they overview the LCS, they overview the Azure Monitor, which has also significant possibilities regarding the measuring. And this is something we very often use to measure how system works. And we can simply recreate the stress of a day of a one process, of a multiple processes, to see how does it work. So this process was quite complicated, and again, we could stay for probably 1 hour elaborating how it went and what exactly transaction was killing the system. But the session is just 1 hour, and I need to move forward. So I would like to invite once again Jake to the scene, so he can explain a little bit more about other concepts. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Bart. Yeah, really interesting stuff, man. I'm always just amazed to see what's going on. Impressive. Yeah, so now time for the elephant in the room. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about RSAT. Maybe you've already tried it out, and we encourage you to take a look at it. It's the in-house regression testing suite that Microsoft offers. We have a full comparison sheet between RSAT and Executive Automats, the tool that Bart just showed. But a couple of quick points that you can see on the screen here is with Executive Automats, of course, you have full support. We actually have great expertise in Dynamics 365 as well as test automation. And so you can get functional and technical support that just not available for RSAT. I think we've all spent time Google searching and searching on YouTube for videos on how to do things. And we know how fun that can be, actually. Another nice thing is cross-platform testing. Bart touched on this a little bit, and I even saw a question in the chat about this. Testing ISVs and other web-based integrations or web-based platforms that you might have, like an e-commerce page or something. You can do that with this Executive Automats. It's quite nice and an important part of your testing project. And as you just saw with Bart, process documentation and performance testing, those are two very significant things that most of our customers are utilizing. And yeah, we think that's something that a lot of people could use. And if it's a byproduct of your test automation, even better. So we offer you the full comparison sheet, and we're happy to talk to you a little bit more about the differences and the different approaches you can take towards test automation. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the elephant in the room there. Would like to remind everybody again, this tool that you just saw, Executive Automats, we have a free trial offer, and for attendees, we're offering a free POC. And I can't stress the value of that enough. This is really, the POC is you work with us, our experts, our people who do this every day, and we work out something specific for you so you can actually really get your hands on and evaluate this testing tool. Free 1 hour training and 2 weeks is the trial. Of course, you know, we don't hold a specific time limit, but generally 2 weeks is what it takes. And yeah, you have yourself a good situation after that. Offers valid again till Thursday, the 16th. With that said, I'd like to introduce my colleague and friend, Mateusz Łukowiec, and he has some information on how you can actually get certified in test automation with Executive Automats. And so he'll talk about that now for just a minute.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Bart, also. I thought that was an excellent presentation and that you gave a great overview of how to get started with test automation in D365. My name is Mateusz, and for the past few years, I have been talking about automated testing with our clients and partners. And from the very beginning, we saw this huge problem that companies had with D365 F&O continuous testing, and we took the approach of listening to the market and developing the tool according to the market needs. And I have to say, I'm extremely proud to see the progress we have made and where we are today with Executive Automats. And I'm just super excited for the future. So Jake just told you about this free POC offer, which is great if you're already thinking about test automation and looking for the tool. What I'd like to tell you about is our certification program. This will be a better option for those of you who just want to get to know the tool and learn the basics of it. So we developed this program simply to make our end users training process better and to make sure that the trainees get to practice all the things that they are learning during the training and that they practice them straight away. It makes a big difference, actually, and we found that adding that certification courses to the training allows the trainees to be fully operational after completing it, and it basically gives them a great head start to start working with EA. We have 2 levels of this, fundamental and associate, but today I'd like to invite you to this free opportunity to take the fundamental level. This is the basic level. It teaches you all the fundamental features of the tool. You learn how to record, modify, extend, and execute test scripts with EA. You learn how to create validations, use data sources, variables, number sequences, and so on and so forth. You pretty much learn all the core features of the tool, and you learn them through hands-on practice. So with this, you receive a list of tasks to complete together with some, of course, instructions. These tasks, they imitate real examples of test cases that testers do every day. So, so far, we've got over 150 trainees who completed this fundamental course successfully, and the average time to complete is 6 hours. They are available, these courses are available on demand The fundamental one costs €100 and the associate one costs 200. And you can sign up on our website in the certification section. That for this fundamental course, we also organize free waves every few months or so. And this is exactly such a free wave where anyone can attempt the certification completely free of charge. And this is what I'd like to invite you for our next wave. And the only catch is that there are only 30 available spots here, and these spots tend to fill out quickly. I will post a link to the registration in the chat, and you will also receive it in the follow-up email. So this free wave will be organized in the week of 20th of September. As you can see on the screen, you need to register before the 16th of September. So the registration is open for a week, and you will receive an email then if you made the list or not. So I'll post the link to the registration right now, and we can move on to the Q&A section. I've seen there were a lot of questions in the chat. So Jake, you can
yeah, we've had a few questions in the chat, and thanks for that, Matt. I highly encourage people to take advantage of that certification wave. You also get a little thing that you can put up on LinkedIn as well to show that you're certified in executive automats. As Matt mentioned, we've had about 150 people do this. So yeah, it's really nice to do. You can see the link to that in the chat as well. Now moving on to the Q&A, I'll go ahead and bring this up here, and a few questions, Bart. Let's take this one first here. The question is, how do we identify batch job as active or failed to achieve the task? Hopefully you understand that well enough. How do we identify batch job as active or failed to achieve the task?
I hope this is regarding the executive automat batch or batch job. Okay, maybe because this topic can be sort of explained two ways. If we are thinking about batch job of Dynamics, indeed, I'll try to focus on that. If this will be not precise answer, let me know. We are able to create a script which creates the batch job in the system. So sets is up right now, and this goes for about, let's say, 15-20 minutes. So we can set the system also waiting time. So it will wait for about specific time we say that it is acceptable for us. And then we can go to the batch job execution to find that batch job execution and check the status, check the current moment where it is at. So we can measure few fields or measure values in a few fields that are available in batch job execution history to tell or judge if it went success or warning or not. So that is something you can definitely do. You just need to set a little bit more logical conditions which will verify your actual result of the transaction. I was just thinking about batch jobs from executive auto, but maybe confusing. So if this answer is not satisfying, you let me know. I can try to elaborate a little bit more.
No problem, Ole, about the raised hand. And maybe I'll read this question on chat from Alex because it's actually important. Guys, I might have missed this, but can MPOS functionality be tested using this tool? ARSA has some limitations. I think this is a great question.
Sure. So we are collaborating with a few companies which decided to use CPOS for that. So we don't support MPOS as this is hosted differently. I mean, the UI is an application, not the browser application, but the customers we collaborate with, and I can just tell you that these are big brands, but I can't tell the names because we've got NDAs with them. They are utilizing CPOS for that. So they do tests on CPOS of the new versions to check the transactions, but they use on the stores, they use MPOS and CPOS. So this is the way how we operate, and we supplement this with hardware station setup as well.
Okay, a couple of questions I think can be answered quite quickly is, can this be used for CRM 365? And I can answer that, yes, it can. And then the next one, Bart, Microsoft Warehouse Management app. Is it possible to record scripts executed in that? And I know you have experience with that as well, so maybe you can elaborate.
Yeah, so warehouse mobile device, indeed, we can. We've done even performance test on warehouse mobile device where we are simulating about 300 users doing transactions in 15 minutes time frame on the WHS on the emulator. We support emulator and we support this new application which Microsoft created. We support that thanks to the library which Microsoft shares, but we do support both of them.
Yep. And how about language support, Bart? I'm assuming this means, you know, if it's in a different language, can test scripts still be recorded? Maybe you can talk
Sure.
about the different ways we interact with that.
Sure. So normally we recommend to record and play back the same process in the same language as we are sort of record in your native language and try to test it that way. If you're going to change languages between, they might have different way how the UI is orientated. I mean, not just simple, small, like not a small changes, but significant changes, like changing from English to Hebrew can practically change the entire application. And if you're going to record in one language and play back in another one, high chance it will play back possibly in the correct way, but you might have some unexpected behavior of the script. For testing purposes, we recommend to stay on one language. If for another purposes, for training, you can test it out to use it against another language.
Sure.
Maybe for the next one, Bart, you could actually show the example of a process documentation for Francesca, and at the same time you can answer her another question. Can the script verify error info-log messages, editability of fields, buttons, report content?
Sure. So this is the documentation you mentioned. The documentation is step-by-step instruction with possibility to embed comments. So you can add comments on every step practically, which is visible, along with hint, which will be placed on the screen. So these type of books can be created automatically from the test case execution. Secondly, you've mentioned the field editability. So if field is available or not. If we will type some data in the field and system will be, it will be impossible to get insert, then you can have an error message. So that is the system sort of the way how system checks. If you are able to type their data, that's success. If not, then you've got the error message.
And so what about verifying the content of a report?
Yeah, so info logs as you were creating, let's say in this transaction, I don't think we've got some info log, but every info log which is as this one, credit limit is okay. If you're gonna use the inspection, so the inspection gives you the possibility to take every value, every text or value visible on the screen, you can save it as a variable along with the info log, and you can make a verification of what is visible. Going step forward, you can even take a fragment of your info log, let's say journal ID, which will be always shown, and save it and compare it or utilize it as a second part of the process. So post something, create a journal, then take the journal ID and have a second process started with that journal to continue the transaction. Regarding reports, reports are a little bit more heavy because very often reports are generated or auto-generated without specific structure where we can identify steps. Right now we are working on report comparisons and checking the results. Right now it is not available to, I mean, you are able to open report, take some data from it, but when you play it back next time, the site, the report will be automatically generated. So every possible way how to find out if the element is in that exact place is quite hard. So we are working on new mechanism which will allow that. Right now, the report verification is a little bit limited.
But we can download the file, right, and keep it in the test case.
Yep, that's a good point. And then we can download the file afterwards. So you can plan the execution of a test case, and afterwards system will download the exact report which will be generated from the transaction.
Nice. Okay, last one we've got for the moment is, could you explain a little bit RSAT chain test cases versus executive automats features? I'm assuming this is linking test cases, chain test cases. So I think that's probably a good example, Bart. If you could talk a little bit about how you can do linked test cases and pass variables and an end-to-end process type of situation.
Exactly. So in executive automats, you've got actually two possibilities. You can have one test case which will be super long, which will have multiple steps, and we recommend not to exceed about 300 steps in a test case, because later on it is a little bit harder to maintain it. But you can have one script which goes through entire process and exchange data by variables. Or if you would like, you can actually create a script which will be empty script, which will have 10 scripts embedded. So that's let's say chain script, you can call it. And let's create here an embedded script execution. So I can tell, let's say, let's take 5 of the first one, or 6 next. Okay. And then I can link here override variables, which means I can take data from the first script and push the data, so the variables, the outcome from the transaction, to script number 5 or script number 7. So this is the way how you can chain your transaction, and then this can be executed. You might remember within the presentation I was talking a bit about the global variable concept. So sometimes, even if script is not linked to each other, you are able to exchange data between them, because they use this common sort of point where they can exchange transaction called the global variables. This concept was actually highly pushed by one of our partners, Columbus, and we've actually done this together, so they can use this on their projects as well.
All right, and Maris, very good question. I see the other elephant in the room. I'm glad you caught on my phraseology there. What are the pricing options? So for pricing options, we've got various partners around the world and so forth, and so this is something that we have a call with you about. And there's also several different levels of the tool that can be used, and different situation, whether it's SaaS, which is important to mention actually, is we can deliver this in a SaaS model where we're hosting it. It can also be delivered as an on-prem or private cloud model where you host and maintain the server. So yeah, we're happy to have a chat, go over all the different pricing options, and of course also give a demo and introduce a free trial. So good question. The other elephant in the room.
Yeah, thank you, Ola. I can actually answer maybe the question from Marcel. Is it possible to use existing RSAT scripts? Well, unfortunately, you cannot reuse them, but you can definitely use them for the backbone of your future executive automats test scripts, because you already have all the steps of your script outlined. You just need to record it in EA, and you saw during the presentation how quickly you can do that with executive automats versus RSAT.
Yeah, that's a really key thing, actually, I've seen in some recent projects, is you have to have the process knowledge. That's key, and already having task recordings is a great way to transfer that process knowledge. And so that is a huge time saver whenever you're doing an automation project. And that's part of the reason why we have the process documentation feature in this tool, is not just training and onboarding materials, but whenever you're going to do any type of update or any future upgrade or anything like this, transferring process knowledge is quite critical. So it's a easy way to be able to do that.
Yep, I think we've run out of questions. Sorry that we ran a little bit over time, but I hope our answers were helpful. We will be happy to follow up with all of you, of course, after this event, and you will also receive the recording together with the links that we mentioned to the free trial and to the certification course. I thought that was great. Bartosz, thank you very much. Jake, great job as always.
Yeah, great job, guys. And really appreciate everybody joining today. Reach out to us, sign up for that free trial. It's quite easy to do. And we're happy to chat and share any experience that we've got with you and help you get started on test automation.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day and talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.